During COVID, we used to have a mask to prevent the infection. We used to rub the sanitizer in our hands before we touch anything, even after touching anything. We used to rub the sanitizer so that infection cannot touch us. Living in the same world. You have to live into the same world, whether it is infectious world or not. So that sanitizer or that mask is listening and learning regularly, and discernment and dispassion are the great sanitizers, which helps us to get away from the delusion, attachment, or detachment. If we don't use that sanitizer and we enter into the world, there is every possibility that we get infected. And if we don't use that, we are not a seeker. And if we don't use them, we are not a seeker. Then normally people argue without any reason and do not go anywhere. They don't get anywhere. They simply go on asking, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a religious person. That does not make any change in their life. And sometimes it happens. Those people attend the session, leave the session, rejoin the session, falls again and again until they declare there is nothing. If we enter into the word every day, the moment we wake up in the morning, we enter into the world. Without reminding ourselves that we are the real self, we will be entangled more and more. Suffering will continue to be there. We are not saying that you leave your honey, you leave your children, you leave your money. No. You don't leave the world. You use the sanitizer. You use the mask. If you don't use it, there will definitely be one or the other problem on that day. Your mind will go for the likes and dislikes, and it will cause one or the other problem. There is no way you can prevent. And what happens the moment we wake up in the morning? The mind goes into the world, and it causes the likes and dislikes, and that lacks the discernment. We enter into the delusion, and then we are done with it. That is what happens. That is why the master says to become a seeker is essential in the journey. Normally, we take an opposite view. My honey is infected, how to treat her? You cannot treat her. You can only give treatment to yourself. You can only prevent the infection. Oh, look at this, my honey is not listening to me. It doesn't work that way. The society is corrupt. It doesn't work that way. This journey is totally different. We can argue from the social point of view, from the country's perspective. No, it doesn't work that way. What happens when we are a seeker? What happens? We have also to understand so that our mind goes back again and again to listening and learning, contemplation and reflection, and we start living in discernment and dispassion. Great Master Ramakrishna used to say, a maid servant in your house or a house of a rich man performs all the household duties. she also takes cares of the master's kids as if these kids are her own, but her thoughts and mind is already fixed on her children, her own home. You wake up in the morning, your mind is totally fixed on the real self while performing all the duties of the day. Continue working. I have a task of teaching and guiding, so let me do it. But my mental awareness is already focused on what is me and mine. And me and mine, when the mind is saturated with an understanding that only the real self belongs to me, that is what who am I is. Otherwise, this journey will be left incomplete. He gives another example. The turtle, whether it is an Atlantic Ocean, I don't remember exactly, that on a given day, on a given week, all the turtles gather on a beach, they go deep inside, outside the beach, they lay their eggs, they return to the ocean, and that is the only meeting with their eggs and the kids. But their mind is always there on the eggs. So we have to do our all the duties, whatever duties is assigned to us in the world, but we have to keep our mind on the real self. That is the journey of becoming a seeker. If we are not a seeker, it doesn't work that way. So what is happening? That discernment and dispassion gives us a clear idea. This is the real self and this is the false I. Discernment means separating the mixture from the false I to with the real I. And the moment we separate it, even if you are suffering from the grief, the pain, and the pain and the suffering, they are minimized at the same time. What happens? The mind has stopped thinking about the worldly thing. The moment we start thinking about the worldly thing, it has to do with the likes and dislikes. It has to do with pain and the pleasure. It has to do with the profit and loss. It has to do with victory and the defeat. That attachment naturally comes. Only the discernment saves us from there. Internal. What is discernment? You can say cognitive ability. Look at the Miss Universe, your mind gets attached, no problem, but at the same time, you are married, your honey is at your home. Miss Universe is not yours. That awareness is required. What happens? That is the power of discernment can do. It is a cognitive ability. It has to do with the cognitive ability. I should not get carried away by anything in the world. Only the seeker of that level can pick up and understand the teachings of this master that we are doing on Saturdays. The master Ramakrishna used to say the same thing in a different way. I converted into with an example of a COVID and sanitizer and the mask. So you see now the jackfruit, if we cut the jackfruit without rubbing the oil in our hands, it becomes sticky. It causes the itching. So the mind has to be coated Mind has to be rubbed. Means what? Discernment and dispassion. In a very simple way. Just think of that. Oh, it's very simple. I'm looking at something and the mind gets attached. At the same time, I apply the discernment and I have already separated myself. It doesn't mean that that object or that person is not beautiful. It is beautiful. We need that awareness. That awareness is known as the mindfulness awareness. Even when the Buddha says, be aware of the breath, it is because of that. You are aware of the breath that is going in and out, that is constantly changing, but behind there is an awareness which is constant. Normally, what we start thinking, oh, let me focus on the breath, change the breath, only the breath awareness can help me. It doesn't work that way. This is what the master is just working at a totally a different level. And it is working only for the higher level of the seekers. He gives another example. To get the butter from the milk, you must let it set into the curd. We allow the milk to become the curd. And how? We allow the milk to settle. You allow the mind to settle into the discernment and dispassion. So, what is the message? That once you listen and learn with the teacher, you do the repeat listening because then you are alone. And then check, is your mind ready to contemplate and meditate? Is it really interested? Repeat listening, what happens? The mind is distracted at many places. Then we know whether we are a seeker or not. So, if mind is distracted, we listen it again, we contemplate and reflect again. We check where the mind is going. Again, we return to a state of discernment, viveka. And then we see that the mind is not disturbed while listening and learning alone. That is the meaning of doing the practice in a solitude when we are alone. Same thing. Same thing. The milk is allowed to settle to become a curd, and then we churn it to extract the butter. Here, the butter is the real self. What a beautiful example. And this master had never studied any text. That is the beauty. And the principles of Eastern wisdom was revealed unto him. Think of it. What kind of a seeker he had been. And that is why he is known as one of the great masters ever lived in 19th century, whose disciple created a storm, Swami Vivekananda. So sitting quietly is not so important, but understanding that you are sitting quietly. You have a cognitive ability that you are sitting definitely quietly is more important. Why? Because you are allowing the mind to settle. The mind is not settled, you cannot perceive, you cannot experience the real self. Just that is why these are the initial preparations a seeker has to do. How many times our mind gets interested? Let me sit in solitude. In spite of people are watching their television, our relations are watching. Oh, let them watch. They are crying, let them cry. They have a hard discussion, let them have it. But in spite of that, I find a solitude in my home and sitting there. We need not to go to the Himalayas. We need not to become a monk. We need not to get associated. So we take the power of discernment and dispassion easily. We take it for granted. No, we have to constantly. I'm sitting here talking to you. What is going on in my mind? Am I aware? I'm just aware and leaving those thoughts, let it go and let it come. Let me remain focused on what I'm doing. That is the meaning of sanitizing. Let the COVID virus come and go. They are present, still they are present. We have already developed an immunity. It's a cognitive ability, it is an understanding, it is a level of awareness that we have to follow. If that awareness is not there, nothing is going to happen. Or we can say, oh, I have rubbed the sanitizer today and I did not do tomorrow. You'll be caught. That is the meaning living in mindfulness. That is the meaning living from a moment to moment. It seems you are careless after rubbing the sanitizer in your hand and the mask on your mouth. You know, you're totally careless. No, internally you are aware. Internally, you have that cognitive ability. If that cognitive ability is there, what is cognitive ability? It is knowledge, it is understanding. Nothing more than that. Well, we can use the cognitive ability and you start thinking about it. No, simple, it is understanding. What is understanding? It is awareness. In the last session, we had some discussion that I said Om Shanti is a projection. Yes, Om Shanti is also a projection. That is our sanitizer. Now, do you use the sanitizer? No more. You don't use the sanitizer. COVID is gone. We have developed the immunity. Until then, Om Shanti has to be done. Think. It is not required. Now it is not required. Nobody uses. Even, some of the doctors say, no, keep using it. It may return. We don't use it. But obviously, it is our understanding that, yes, we are aware. If we don't use it, may return. Om Shanti, any mantra, any practice of meditation, for that sake. We have to use them. We have to do the practice until we recognize it is not required. Who recognizes? You recognize. What do you recognize? Again, I'm going for cognitive ability. You are living in the world, you wake up in the morning, and your mind is not at all attached. It looks at the world of the people, relations, things. What happened yesterday, your mind does not repeat it. Somebody said you something, you are entering into the jealousy or hatred. No, that is not there in the mind. Already you have rubbed it. Think of this. We get away with millions of the thoughts after many weeks, many months. So it takes the mind to forget it. So when the mind forgets, it accumulated the impression. It is not treated there and then. We didn't use the sanitizer, and then we got infected, and then we start thinking what happened. Oh, did I touch the vegetables, that we bought it, or something else, or my friend has come to me? We start thinking, we get confused. That is the journey. The mind keeps on thinking with the sense of attachment, duality, and a conflict, and then we fall into the delusion, and or maybe pride, maybe anger, maybe hesitation. We are lost. When we are lost, lost means we are ignorant. Lost means that now my mind does not have an idea and a thought, an understanding of what is real self, because I'm totally engaged in the false self, false self. Think of this. We need to contemplate and reflect. We have to be very clear. We should have a clear understanding. Oh, this is what is happening. So again, let me summarize it again, what we discussed until now. That in ignorance, the mind has a mistaken identity of the real self as a reflected consciousness. In ignorance, there is a mistaken identity that real self is nowhere exist. It is the false I. But that false I is the moonlight. I just discussed a couple of weeks before. So that moonlight is nothing but the reflected consciousness. It is our ego. So it hides the pure consciousness. It is something like that you are standing before the mirror, you look your image into the mirror, and you say, let me brush the teeth of that image. This is what is happening all the time, during every moment in your life. Honey, don't get upset, I did not see that girl, I did not talk to that. Unnecessary, unwanted. You see the wailing power? That is, we discussed last time, the wailing power. First, ignorance, that is the wailing power, and then the projection is there. This is what happens all the time. Otherwise, we are always free. We need not to become free. We are free. Imagine a prince who get who gets amnesia, forgetfulness. So in that state of amnesia, he starts thinking that he's a beggar on the street, concealed. I'm a prince, that is concealed. He has forgotten his true identity. It is concealing. It is the wailing part. Pay attention. Why he forgets? Because of the ignorance. And then the projection. First he concealed, forgotten. Second power of ignorance, projection. So what now he lives with the projection. What is his projection? He's a beggar. He's so poor. He has to beg. So he starts begging. We have to be very careful. Two powers of ignorance. One is concealing. What is concealing? He is not a prince, he is a beggar. And then he identifies with being a beggar. That is why he is suffering. He keeps on begging. And one day the minister recognizes this prince, is why he's begging. Goes to him and reminds him he is actually the prince. See what happens. When the teacher helps you to recognize you are the real self, what happens? Just think of that. Imagine you are the real self of the nature of peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. What happens? Amnesia is gone. Oh, really? You throw the begging bowl. You don't force to throw it. So we have misunderstood Buddha. He left the kingdom. No, he did not leave the kingdom. Normally, we refer to Buddha, look at him, what he did. No, he did not leave the kingdom at all. He found no utility of that. He awakened to that reality. In the midnight, he left his wife. That is how we have to use the language. He left his wife and his son. The last time he saw. No, he saw it again. When he got enlightenment, he returned to the same kingdom. Look at this power of concealing and power of projection. So there was a heightened level of dispassion at the time he left. He returned to the kingdom, knocked the door. I think I repeated that story a couple of times. Now see the attitude of his father and his wife. His wife said, "No, I will forgive you. Come on. I know you have been engaged with all kinds of pleasure, so I allow you to come in." Father said, "I will give you the kingdom, provided you leave these orange colored robes." And Buddha was smiling. Buddha said, "I found that reality. And I have knocked the door to tell you that you follow me. I will show you the path. Follow me does not mean that you have to leave the kingdom. You have to become a seeker. You have to get rid of these two powers of ignorance. Normally, we create a story around good, great people that he left the king. Kabir did not, Kabir was such a poor guy. He did not have any kingdom. He also left. Nobody talks about him. You see, that also causes a lot of problem in our head. Kabir was such a great master. He was born in a weaver's family. Again, you have to cognize power of concealing and the power of projection. So my mind projects the power. Oh, he was such a poor guy. Then he realized what a big deal. Buddha left his kingdom. That is a big deal. Think it is important for us to understand that. Why we worship Buddha. Let me first become a prince and then I will think about it. Are we cheating ourselves? The power of projection continues to work when I follow Buddha. Power of projection gets a big blow when you listen to the Kabir. Ah, whatever, he's a poor guy. Projection. But he's the real self. We don't recognize. See the comparison at the outer level. It is because of the ignorance, two powers of the ignorance. So a seeker recognizes the essence. Seeker does not go by what is outside in the name in the form, what position, what authority one holds. So our discernment is not complete if we look at any one of these masters with an eye of the projection. So that mind's eye of the projection continues the ignorance. I have to see what they have said, what is their teaching. I have to absorb that knowledge. Eastern wisdom is all about knowledge. Whether it is Buddha or Kabir or Krishna or anyone. We get carried away. Anything we get carried away, absence of the dispassion, absence of the discernment, and these absence because of the delusion. I'm not a seeker. Unless I'm a seeker, I cannot discover that. We have to understand that. How much time it take for the prince to leave the place of the begging, leave the bow. The moment we recognize. I've been stressing again. In Saturday's session, we need a cognitive ability, a right cognition, minus these two powers of the ignorance, or at a lower level, minus attachment and detachment, minus likes and dislikes, minus idea of the pain and the pleasure, minus sorrow and the joy. We can go on. Minus the idea of the pain and the pleasure caused by you, any situation, any relationship. People mistake it. We have to leave that object, that person. How can you leave that object? That object is already separate from you. What to leave? You have $1 million, next day you die. Money doesn't chase you. So there we lack understanding. Why we lack understanding? Because of dispassion. Absence of dispassion. Absence of recognition that this object which I have projected as me and mine is not exactly, is false. Same projection that my body, it is a false. Constantly, my mind, it is false. Think. We have to think. We have to think continuously in it. So Master gives us a clue. Here is the principle. Go on. Go on with the same chain of the thoughts in line with the principle of Eastern wisdom. And what is left is only you, and what is left is the real self, is the pure consciousness. Nothing else. My wife, my husband is a projection. My money is a projection. My house is a projection. My body is a projection. My thought is a projection. Om Shanti is also a projection. Nothing is left out. Nothing is left out. What is left? That cannot be rejected. We reach to a point that cannot be rejected. That is me. I cannot reject myself. Say, for example, if I say, I have rejected myself, who is saying this? I. I cannot reject myself. No way. No way. And that I am is the real I. But when I said I rejected myself, I'm projecting. I'm projecting. I'm simply projecting. I'm making a fun of myself. I'm making a mockery of myself. It is that beauty of the wisdom. By understanding only, we live in the state of mindfulness all the time. All the time. Why all the time? Because I have recognized this is I am. And I have recognized what I am not. So obviously, because once I recognize this is my home, so I will return back to my home. Now I recognize what is my home and what is not mine. This is why we say tamasoma jyotirgamaya, moving from ignorance to wisdom. So that is why this master says we need not to do anything, we need to rediscover. You go back where you think you are, contemplate and reflect. Reject the projection and reject what is concealing you behind. And we find we are there. Why we are there? Because it is already with us. So you see, from a different perspective, if I have to earn money, I have to make an effort. Money is outside, money is with you, so I have to take the money from you. So I have to make some effort. I have to show my skill sets and expertise. It is not with me, but the real self is already with me. So we need a rediscovery. To discover anything in the world or invent something, obviously it is the material object, this is not me. But what is already me, that is already present here and now, I have to rediscover. So that rediscovery has to be done through a different approach. So the Eastern wisdom, all masters, shows us a different approach. That is all we are doing. It's as simple as that. So that is why we have gone deeper in the last session, that ignorance has two factors. So we are going deeper, and further we will go deeper. So what is this concealing power? How it is expressed? How should I recognize this is a concealing power or the willing power? And how should I recognize that this is projection? We carry forward our wrong notions, wrong identity continue. We take it for granted that you are my husband, you are my wife, so wife should have certain level of, what we say, morality and ethics, and I should also have it. Sometimes those who are crazy people, they say that, morality doesn't apply to me, it applies to you. So we are going deeper, much deeper into the projection path. We do not stop only the ignorance is definitely is the cause of suffering, but then we explore the ignorance's two power, the power of concealing or the power of hiding or the power of veiling. Veiling what? Veiling the reality. And at the same time, the moment it has concealed, then I don't know the real self. I have a thought, I don't know the real self. Then obviously this I says, who am I? I'm the body and the mind. Done. So the projection power also comes. So both works together. Where it is working in the mind. Why it is working in the mind? The mind lives in ignorance, not the real self. What we have to do, we have to put the knowledge where the ignorance is. Where the ignorance is, it is in the mind. That is why we are talking. That is why we are using this thought process. Because of the thought process, we had the ignorance. We had the mistaken identity. We have to use the same thought process. We have to use the same thought process. When you understand this, the message of the master, you know, oh, that is why discernment and dispassion is required. And then the ignorance is gone. We find that we are the real self. Close your eyes. Eyes are closed. And pay attention. Eyes are closed. You are aware. Eyes, whose eyes? Your eyes. You see the projection? I have not to see others' eyes are closed or not. Mind has a chain of the thoughts, has a mistaken identity. And once you say, my eyes has to be closed, you have already created a projection. But when we are aware, we know what it means. So what it means? It is being used to be comfortable. And another message that the sense organ cannot find the real self. So we close the eyes, it is symbolic that no sense organ can help me know the real self. That is the message. That is the cognition we should have. We need not to squeeze our eyes. And then I give a very simple way that you look at the shoulder joints, be there, feel the sensation, comfort, and steadiness. We are moving from one projection to the other. When there is a projection of the pain and the discomfort, it is better to move to another projection of comfort. And from the projection of that comfort, we move deeper until all the projections are left. Otherwise, there is no way. Because in extreme pain and the suffering, your mind is not ready to discern. Other master says we move from the tamoguna to rajoguna to satoguna, leave all the three gunas. They all are projections. But we cannot directly jump from tamoguna to satoguna. That is the key. So it means that we need not to be attached to even satoguna, yes. But we are not there. We are in tamoguna. Why? The absence of discernment is there. Absence of viveka is there. We are not able to separate. We don't see the pain is different from me. The body is different from me. And that is why I use the word being comfortable. Look at the entire body from the top of the head to the toes. You are looking now the body as an object, not my body. When you look at the body as an object, so you have an objective experience. What is that experience? Sensation, comfort, and steadiness. That is also an object. No me and mine. Oh, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then what? Then we look in the space of the darkness, and that space and the darkness, that space is awareness, and awareness is the space. Can you reject awareness? Reject it. If you say, I reject awareness, so I have to ask you, who is rejecting? That itself is awareness. And it will continue. It will never come to an end. So mind says it is just an awareness. That's done. Ignorance is gone. Cognitive understanding. I told you. I've been saying it. So what happens? We live into that state. Even to say to live into that state is another projection. That is the problem. So we recognize that how deeper this consciousness is, and the mind continues to throw these projections in the form of the rays. Once we recognize, we become free from the thought too. And that is why, I used to give the second step in all practices. Why? Because I keep my eye that which group and which person is reaching here. So I can instantly remind them, oh, these two steps are enough. Oh, you play a trick, yes. You already know what I'm going to say with reference to being carefree. I'm just reminding you, we're not following any practice. Again, you see the cognitive ability. Thoughts are coming and going. Did you invite them? No. Did they come on their own? Yes. So we give that thought coming and going as a lane one. So simple. Don't you recognize the name of the street? Same thing. What effort you need? Okay. And now we are aware who has labeled this as a lane one. That is a knower. That is a lane number two. That is the seer. Because without seeing, how can I label? Oh, yes. Oh, that is a knower. That is a seer. That is normally in India is used as a preksha or vipassana or witness. We misuse these words. So I name it as a very simple. It's a knower. That is the lane two. Why I say lane one and lane two? Because these two lanes are separate. To just give a birth to a discernment that they are separate. I and thoughts are different. Whether it's the my thought is not I. Knower cannot become the known. Object, subject cannot become the object. It's a universal law. Oh, really? Yes. It's a universal law. The knower is always separate from the known. Oh, it is so. Yes. So ask the mind what I need to do. I need not to do anything. They are separate and I'm aware. Let us go little, so-called little deeper. Again, I'm using the word. So what is my what is my cognition with reference to the body? Body is an object and I'm the knower of the body. They both are separate. Finished. Yes, you can be aware of the sensation in the body, the stillness in the body, no issue at all. Body possesses the wealth. The body has been labeled as a prince or a beggar, not the mind at all. Mind uses the mistaken identity as an expression, but the label is given to the body as a prince or as a beggar, or Buddha or as a Kabir. Why we are not able to digest absence of discernment. So what the discernment does, discernment says the body of every human being is the same. It is made up of the same carbohydrate, protein. Even though it appears different as a name, in the form, as a height, as a weight, as a color, but still all are made up of the matter. Oh, so whether it is Buddha or Kabir, you or me. This is discernment. Also, there is a common element is the matter, yes. And who recognizes the matter? I. Who is this I? Is the knower. And the knower is always separate from what I know. I know the body. I'm a knower of the body. I'm totally different and separate from the body, independent of it. Oh, so that I is the same in Buddha, in Kabir, in you and me is separate from that body whose label is the Buddha or Kabir or you or me. Yes. For here, we need an extraordinary awareness. What is this extraordinary awareness? Higher level of dispassion or discernment. I'm making it very simple today. Oh, what about the breath? Yeah, look at the breath. Do you know the breath? Yes, I know the breath. The moment I know anything, it is an object. Object is different from the subject. You see that we use the different languages. So subject is the knower. Object is the breath. The breath continues moving, changing, yes. Did the I change? That I, which was separate from the body, that I, which is looking at the breath, No, the eye is the same. Looking at the breath. What is looking? It's a cognition. What is cognition? It is awareness, it is understanding, it is knowledge. So in our tradition, we say you have already gone deeper into the breath. Go a little deeper, so we find the mind. So we come to the lane one and lane two again. So when you recognize the lane one is different and separate from me, what else is required? So when I say go deeper than that, what is left? What is left is the knower only. What is left is the pure consciousness only. Is that I am? I need not to say. It's a self-cognition. That is what is known as it's a self-revealing. Without the mind, self reveals itself. Why? The self is consciousness. Like the sun does not need a candle night to be recognized, to be known. The self is consciousness. It does not need the mind to recognize that it is the real self. What that means? It means the self transcending the mind. Mm. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Oh. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your mind on the right hand, your mind on the left hand. Lift your both your palms, place it on your eyes. Open the eyes inside the palms. Know your experiences. Bring the hands down and we'll share our experiences. If you have any question, you can ask those questions to me. How are you? Vaibhav.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm good. Going to the practice, I was understanding this that uh, we should not blindly accept what our mind is saying to us. It is just the objective reality, and my objective reality can be different from else's objective reality. But underlying our subject reality, we all belong to the same subjective reality. That is the real self, and that is always in peace. So if we
Be-
realize this, then it will like we can discern from this objective reality and come to the natural state.
Beautiful way. It's a beautiful way to understand. Objective realities vary from person to person, situation to situation, even from country to country. It has many shades, colors, events, incidents, but the subjective reality is only one. Wonderful. Beautiful vibe. How are you, Dennis?
I'm good, thank you. In the meditation, I was able to separate the seer, the observer, from the thoughts, from the body-mind complex, from the experiences in the body and in the mind. But when I'm trying to observe the observer, when I'm trying to direct the awareness to the seer, there seems to be some kind of barrier um, that prevents me from recognizing the who is that one who sees, who is that one who observes. What is this barrier? Is this a lack of discernment or lack of dispassion or uh,
Yes, you're right. Who is asking this question? It is the mind. Who is trying to find out who is an observer? Let me see. So when I ask this question, it is coming from the mind. The real self has nothing to ask this question. So we bring the mind back that you are an observer, just remain as an observer and see what happens. So, observer, now one, the moment any observer becomes the observed, it becomes an objective reality. So, there cannot be two observers. So, there the mind plays a trick. Obviously, at a higher level, we can say it is a lack of discernment. Obviously, you're right. You're right. Or we can say it is the impurity of the mind. Or we can say it is a projection. We can use any word. It all goes back to the same thing, ignorance, mistaken identity. So the mind hides that identity that I am an observer and let me become an observed and see where is the next observer. So that is why we say that we need an extraordinary awareness or a higher level of discernment. Or or we can use the word the purified state of the mind. We can use different words, but it amounts to the same thing. At this, especially on the Saturday's session, variable that this analysis is required. You rightly analyze, and that analysis takes us to a step further. So, how are you, Ashok?
Thank you, sir. I have no question. Thank you so much. Peaceful,
Thank
calm.
you. Peaceful. So, think of it. I'll be sending you this file again and again. Contemplate and reflect. That is all for today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Everyone.
you,
Thank
sir. Thank you.
you.